one of my favorite Walt Disney quotes, and he says, I heard that there's a recession, and I choose not to participate.
Welcome to the Lendsetter Show, the show that blends the art of sales, the science of success, and the strategies of real experts in the mortgage and sales industries to help you grow your client base, increase your revenue, and get in control of your life. I'm your host, Preston Schmidley. Kick back, enjoy the episode, and don't forget to subscribe.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Lendsetter Show. I'm very excited. It's going to be a really fun episode. I'm here joined by one of my great friends in the mortgage industry, Jason Frazier of Rebel IQ. He is a brilliant direct response marketer, which I actually think is really cool because there's a lot of marketers in any industry. There's a lot of marketers in the mortgage industry. There's not many direct response marketers in the mortgage industry. And so, he's somebody I have a ton of respect for. And honestly, it gets lonely out here. So it's nice to have somebody else that I feel I could connect with on that level. Jason, thanks for joining us today on the Lendsetter Show. I think what would be a great starting point is why don't you introduce yourself and kind of assume people don't know who you are. I mean, I think that'd be kind of crazy, but there will be some new people that just haven't had a chance yet listening to this. So introduce yourself and let's talk about Rebel IQ. I know that's been kind of a big rollout here in the last month or so.
Yeah, no, man. Thanks for having me on here. I feel exactly the same about you. It's I think I mentioned this at the Lendsetter Mastermind is that there's probably what I consider tactical marketers in our industry. There's probably 10, and you and McBilly are two of them, right? And so. I always enjoy having, someone that I could talk to on the level that I'm used to when it comes to being a tactician, right? When it comes to marketing. So I appreciate you having me on and I look forward to our conversation. So thanks again, Preston.
Yeah, for sure.
So my name is Jason Frazier. I tend to go by Frazier. And I am the EVP of growth for Rebel IQ. I've been in the industry full-time since 2009. I was born into the mortgage industry. I am not a marketer by trade. I am an engineer by trade. And prior to getting into the mortgage industry, I worked. I'm born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I was working for technology startups and venture capital firms. I used to work for Peter Thiel, who's the founder of PayPal.
Sick.
And came up with the PayPal mafia. So which I think in hindsight was one of the best things in my career because it taught me how to think differently and be a true contrarian. To find the results, not just saying going the opposite way, but actually finding results from doing something different.
For sure.
So I'm an award-winning marketer. I've been focused on marketing since 2016. Spoken at a lot of different events, both in and outside of the industry, real estate, mortgage. First time I think I met Preston was at the Gary Vaynerchuk's Agent 2021 in 2019. It's actually where I met, even though I'd known Christine Beckwith. I know was a good friend of both of ours. But that's where I met Christine the first time, and
that was a fun day. It was a really fun day.
And it did. I mean, you can't beat that locale and the content and the people, and it was awesome. And so I'm also a coach. So and in fact, I'm a coach for with Christine. We're actually just going to be announcing that next week, actually.
Nice, man.
But I'll be a marketing coach for her and a strategy coach. And so I'm looking forward to doing that. But look, at the end of the day, I'm passionate about this industry, passionate about helping loan officers succeed. But more importantly, I'm passionate about stepping on the neck of the status quo and doing something different. So
I like that, stepping on the neck. Yeah.
That's how I roll, man. And so that's me in a nutshell.
I love it. So let's dive into some recent news with you because I know, you and I've talked about this. It's really beautiful to watch you just personally. I feel like you are in a phase, not just a phase, that's not the right word, but you're in a position in life right now where I feel like you've been kind of blooming and blossoming and like you're unconstrained would be the best word for it, right? Like I feel like you, and for good reason, and given the industry we're in, have been kind of throttled back from a lot of the strategies, the knowledge that you have, in a lot of the opportunities you've had over the years, right? And I mean, by all standard metrics of success, your journey, you've had, great titles with great companies, and you've been a part of great teams, right? But throughout all of that, it's cool to see you now because knowing being an observer of you for a few years now and seeing how much I feel like you've just kind of stepped into an open space that you're much more welcome as you are, I feel. And it's just really cool to see. And that open space I'm talking about is you and Andrew obviously started working together, and you joined what was previously known as Lead Pops, now Rebel IQ. And I mean, in the short time you've been there, there's been a lot of things that seem to be shifting, moving, right? And I know that you're obviously attacking growth and progress within the company. So why don't you talk a little bit about what that's been like for you, just being a part of that organization, and what you feel some of the future is. I mean, I know you guys, like I said, just did this kind of repositioning, might be a better word for it, from Lead Pops to Rebel IQ. I'd be curious about that and just kind of what you see as the future for that.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, you're right on the money is, and look, and nothing against the companies that I work for, but there's structure, right? There's a lot of structure, and, I'm one that I can play within structure, but at the end of the day, it's funny is, Andrew Pollack, the, founder and CEO of now Rebel IQ. He's been a good friend of mine for years. And so we've always talked about at some point, it'd be cool if we could work together. And prior to my last position, I almost went and worked with him, and just, I'd already committed to doing something else. But Andrew would always, if I was frustrated or something, Andrew's like, man, you just got to let the eagle fly. And so that's kind of our internal joke is letting the eagle fly. And that's the thing, is Andrew doesn't really put me in any boxes to where I have to play at a certain level. I'm able to be myself. And so far with the results and things that I'm doing is when I have, control and autonomy to do what I know how to do. And, we find success. And that's what we've been doing these last few months, especially with the transition. We call it more of an evolution of what Rebel IQ is, what we provided to the industry is something important, focusing on, conversion, right? Converting and turning clicks into clients is like what we said. But at the end of the day, that ends up being somewhat of a commodity business, right? Because you could get a website anywhere, you could get, funnels anywhere, forms and stuff like that. But even with that, there's strategy and services and putting everything together that makes it special. And so we had to evolve to be beyond a commodity and pull all these things together, start creating new services to meet to what our clients need today and what they're going to need in the future. And I think the missing piece is that, Andrew's only one guy, right? And he's, he's a CEO. So, he's got a lot of vision. We think about marketing almost exactly the same way. We look at what the market needs, and we hope we have similar backgrounds in marketing and sales. And so I think what was needed was, us working together is he had someone to depend on to see some of these visions into reality. Also bring in that expertise that I have is, like you mentioned, is that, I've ran consumer direct. I've generated over 300 million in closed loans through that. I've run wholesale marketing, retail marketing. I've been an executive on sales, technology, strategy, marketing in this industry. And so I use all it. And when I look at, competitors or other companies and even outside of like a marketing space, is that generally there's not that type of that acumen, that experience to expertise that helps bring everything together. Also being a coach of loan officers, right? And so I think nobody understands their clients as much as, as we do. And I think we have the tools to do that. But now it's time to evolve to something different. Rebel IQ is right up my wheelhouse when it comes to different first, better second, right? It's to go against the status quo, to be a contrarian, right? To be a rebel, right? To a guy that we both look up to and that has taught us a lot, and that Dan Kennedy, it's that renegade mindset, right?
Right.
And not to do the same thing as everyone else. And so that's really what Rebel IQ has evolved to, is to add more services on top. How do we create better connections with agents? How do we help with coaching? And how do we help with all aspects of marketing? And then using our platform as like that foundation to bring everything together and say like, hey, we just told you how to do X, Y, and Z. Now you have all the tool set to go and do that. And we're going to be adding more to that, some more partnerships to help loan officers. And, I say this all the time, we don't really have any competitors because not everyone does what we do. And when I say that, a lot of people know me. I'm not a big guy on bravado, and I'm not saying that like, hey, we're the best and you can go somewhere else and you're not as good. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that everyone has something different, right? And to me, it's just like when people ask like what the best CRM is or this or that, best way to get leads and all that other stuff. It's all about fit, right? Like, I mean, there's going to be some people, like with you guys, there's going to be some people where the good vibe squad, ecosystem and what you guys do as a fractional CMO, like that's going to be right up their wheelhouse. And that's what they need, right? Fantastic. Right. Awesome. Right. Sometimes it's going to be us, sometimes it's going to be our boy Luke, right? It's going to be something, right? And who cares? There's plenty. Well, the way I look at it, and like I've mentioned to you, is that like, look, there's going to be plenty of business for all of us. I'd rather it be us, the people I just mentioned that are ended up winning for sure and dominating. And so like, but at the end of the day, what I'm really rebelling against it when I say the status quo is the ancient dinosaur mindset that the industry has come up with since I got in the industry and before, is that of how you acquire customers, right? We get into this bubble of mortgage, and then we look at every other industry, every other vertical when it comes to marketing and growth. And then they get in the mortgage and all of a sudden they think consumers are different. Right? They all seem like, and it just doesn't work that way. All of a sudden, just because of it's a price point, there's a lot of things that are a bigger price point than buying a house where the consumers are still a consumer. And so what I focused on as a marketer is I didn't focus on a mortgage consumer, a real estate consumer. I focused on like neuromarketing. Why do consumers say yes? Why do they do it? Why do they do what they do? Like I focused on the other marketers outside the industry, like a Russell Brunson, right? Or a Dan Kennedy, or Gary Vaynerchuk and others out there. And then not only that, but I looked at outside salespeople and entrepreneurs and how they built their businesses and how they looked at sales and marketing, and then tried to be a sponge and learn everything I can, and then figured out how do I make that work in our industry. And it does. It's hard, right? It's hard to move that cheese for people. And so Rebel IQ is the embodiment of all of that. Is just like, look, we may not be a fit for you, and we're not trying to convince you, right? Like if I have to sit there and have a conversation about a loan officer, why video is important, right? Probably not a good fit, right? Like I'm not here to, and I tell that, like I try to, every call I'm on, I try to tell people, I try to scare them, right? I just try to say like, I try to convince them not to sign up with us or whatnot, because I know if they do, then they're probably our type of person, right? It's about having that dream 100, about that perfect avatar of our client, and to help people that want to be helped and that want to be coached to do something different, because then there's no other way. And if people haven't seen what's happened from like 2010 to 2020, where we really just commoditized the mortgage industry, is where like, hey, no one is better than the other person. I could just get a mortgage anywhere, except it all comes down to rate. You're not going to grow that way. You're going to stay in perfect competition, which isn't good for anybody. It's not good for the consumer, and it's not good for trying to grow a company, right? And so that's why, and we've had this conversation before too, about like with a market downturn and things being, this is when empires are made. This is when people make their bones, and I know you're up for it. I know I'm up for it. I know AP's up for it. Like, it's a good time, and we're excited. We're excited because the people that have come along, with us, and look, it takes time. It even internally trying to, change the nomenclature from Lead Pops to Rebel IQ and look, Lead Pops isn't going anywhere. We've decided to call that as our SaaS platform. That's going to be the name of our SaaS platform, and we're, look, it's going to take some time, but so far, our growth has increased these last few months. Our leads, our demo requests, all of that stuff has increased compared to what it's last year. And this is a tough market to sell in, but I think we're up to the task.
You said something that reminds me of one of my favorite Walt Disney quotes, and he says, "I heard that there's a recession, and I choose not to participate." And I was like, that is one of my favorite things, because it's like it really is true. We all have increased resistance. You have it. I have it. Yep. We all have that. But the playing field is still level. It's just harder for everybody right now, right?
Yeah.
But within that, there's a choice we all get to make by choosing: are we going to play the game the way the game was played previously? Or are we going to change up what we're doing? Are we going to evolve? Are we going to improve? And I think I just from interacting with you guys, I know that you guys have, really looked inward and focused on, okay, well, we, like any hard market, right? we have to be the best version of ourselves, right?
Yep.
Actually, Eric Thomas said this really well at the next event over the summer. He said the only thing that a recession does is it takes you from the season to the playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's things in the season you can get away with,
Yep.
right? There's things in the season that you still get to play tomorrow if you mess up today. But when you're in the playoffs, that one bad pass kicks you out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's no grace for the error, right? Yeah. So if people are showing up now, and not giving it 110%, it's going to be challenging, right? But there's obviously a way to overcome that, and it's not easy for anybody. But I had a conversation with one of our clients the other day, and the statement was made that he was kind of down because like he felt like leads weren't answering the phone or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And as part of the lead game, right? And so he goes, I just believe that people that can qualify for a house in California are not on Facebook. And I'm like, what? I mean, first of all, if you have that belief, there's nothing I can say that can provide much value at all. But B, we're selling shelter, not Lamborghinis, and it's so interesting to see them. Like it was actually really innovative because, as you know, we went out to Ohio, spent a day with Dan a few weeks ago, and there was a lot of stuff that came off of that. And then we we had enough already, and then we already had this mastermind planned in Mexico with Russell, right? So we went like back to back with a week with a day with Dan, then the next week with Russell, and it was so much intake of information. But like one of the things to that I just realized was so important was, and I think it's taken for granted isn't the right word, but I think to us it's just life. Like we don't, it's just a part of how we live. But there's a level of belief, not in the destination, but in the standards, behaviors, practices, and like the what we do. You and I and the people that we roll with, we wake up and we go, hell or high water, today I'm doing X, right? I'm showing up. Now, I might get punched in the mouth, I might make a sale, but I'm showing up, right? And that is like, I started to study a lot of our clients that are doing really well. And we have a client that we just picked up who, he did 155 million last year. He ain't worried about a recession.
Yeah.
Right? Now, obviously, not everybody's going to do that, but it can be done. He's evidence. He ran the 4-minute mile, right? In a hard year, he wrote 9 figures of business. And if I don't care who you are, what you've done. If you're writing 9 figures of business in 2022, hats off to you, Yeah. And so, it's really, to me, that was inspiring and empowering because it's like, okay, well, there's 1,000 ways to have some level of success. But I've also realized that the belief, the standards it's not just a marketing world thing. This is, when I'm studying these top performers of mortgage, of marketing, of business in general, the people that I meet at fellow masterminds, it's like, there's just a level of like, I'm showing up. And whatever happens, right? And so it is an interesting time right now. But in my opinion, it's also really inspiring to see some of the things that people are doing and the ways in which they're growing, while others in the same exact environments and markets are, saying you can't, it won't, right? And I think this market really magnifies that whole concept of whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Right.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like, right?
Now nobody wants to hear that when they're the one saying they can't. But it's like, it's really interesting to observe because it's like, and I'm sure you guys have this from time to time where somebody will go, hey, the widget doesn't work, right? This doesn't work. Leads don't work. Facebook doesn't work. The lead forms don't work. The website doesn't work, right? Whatever, right? Whatever the tool to get you the Gazmo is. And this was a realization I had recently was I've spent most of my life selling the shovel, and only sometimes do people believe and trust in the treasure map, right? Mm-hmm. Now, we give them the treasure map when we sell them the shovel. The problem is if we're 6 months in and for whatever reason you haven't used the shovel right because you didn't look at the treasure map and you go, I haven't gotten treasure. Well, where are you digging? how are you digging? Are you digging at all? I mean, first of all, you know, do you know how to use a shovel? Right? Well, no, I'm great at sales. I know what I'm doing. This just doesn't work. You know, I got hundreds of other people that have a different narrative, you know?
Yep.
And so it's just interesting to see that dichotomy between people where you give the same tool to different people. And this isn't, I'm not trying to roast anybody. It's just, I've actually, I don't think I've processed it so much, except for these last few weeks, being exposed to new people and having some of these conversations with clients after this. And I was like, the problem is not the tool. It really never was. It was the belief system, the operating system, right? It's like people always think it's a hardware issue. This is a software issue. There's a different operating system for a top producer, you know? Yep. And so it's just, I don't know. I'm sharing fresh insights for me. I don't know that I have anywhere to go with that. It's just, it's interesting. It's interesting to see, and I'd be curious if you guys see some of that stuff on your end or what you do see on your end where, you know, there's different people use the same things very differently.
Oh, 100%. In fact, I had this conversation the other day with a loan officer. And look, as a coach, I'm in a different position than most because I go one-on-one and group coaching with loan officers, hearing their challenges and talking about that. But I get to put on they're paying me, so I get to put on my coaches. They don't pay me to tell them. Hopefully they don't, because generally they will coach with me if they do. But I always treat it like somewhat of like a Venn diagram, right? And I say, like, write this out, right? What you want to hear and what you need to hear. Right. And I'm going to tell you what's what, and then you figure out like where that meets in the middle. Right. And figure out what changes you have to make, because what you want to hear generally very seldom helps you. Right. Because I want to hear a lot of different things, but it's not what I need to hear. Right. It's just what I want to hear. We're all human. Like you mentioned that before, like we're all human. So we all have that built into our DNA. But you know, you couldn't be more right when it comes to the mindset. And here's the thing: is like when someone, I always say that, like I'm like, you feel this way based off of, you know, is that your feelings? Do you have any data to back anything up other than your belief that it does? I believe that this doesn't work. And just like, hey, if whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And my thing is like, you know, to your point, like I have other people in your market that are freaking killing it, right? And so what's the difference? It's the mindset, right? It's always the mindset, and it's mindset and work ethic. And if you go in there thinking like, I'm always going to do what I've always done, you do what you always done, you're going to get what you always got, right? And some markets, and I can tell you, I don't care where you've been, I don't care how long you've been in this industry, you've never gone through a market like this with all these things happen at the same time. Have you gone through down markets? 100%. Gone through booms? Yes. Right? But you've never gone through all these things happening at the same time. It creates, you know, where we had 2 back-to-back years, we're running at a consumer deficit, we're definitely running at a deficit of inventory, and you put all these things together, it's just a competitive market. You're going to have to work harder than you've worked probably in your life right now. And for those that I see that are doing it, I posted some stats on a client of ours that did, you know, in 6 months, had over 330 opportunities, had 2,200 some apps, and was doing 15 closings a month. And then I get these emails like, hey, we didn't get any of these types of numbers. Okay, then like, what are you doing? Oh, well, I don't even think I'm using it. Well, I'm like, that's probably number one.
Let's start there.
Yeah, start with that, right? And look, we got to take some ownership as an organization, making sure that our clients are successful. But here's the thing: is that like, it starts and stops with them, right? And the work that they're going to put in. And not only that, but having the mindset to do that, because yes, it's going to be hard. You're going to get knocked down. You are going to get pushed around. You are going to have closings fall through. You are going to have, your clients, pre-approved and not win offers. That's just going to be the nature of the business. Rates are going to do what rates are going to do. And so the only thing that you're going to be able to control is between your 2 ears. And so, really, that's what you gotta focus on as an originator, and you gotta believe that you're good, right? Like, me, I believe I'm the best, right? Like, but that helps me drive to make sure that I am the best. Or
sure, of course, we've established a standard and a belief around it. I mean, that's
right. Yeah, like, I mean, you got to do that. And look, it's and even the top, and this is the thing, like you go to top producers and you actually look at them. It's never one thing, right? So, it's never just like, hey, I'm using this tool, I'm using this company, I'm using this CRM, I have this website, I'm using MBS Highway, whenever it happens to be, they all are variables and they're all important, but it's never just one thing. And the thing about top producers, and they're thinking like, hey, when you're saying they're not worried about a recession, they're not worried about the recession. Do they have bouts of like getting knocked down? 100%. Do they have failures along the way? Sure. But the point is that they're not afraid. They know what's going to happen. They know that it's something that I bring up quite a bit with the people I coach, is that when you worry about something, you are paying a debt that you do not owe, because whatever's going to happen is happen. All you can do is control what you control. And I'll tell you right now, if you get up every single day, put in the effort that you need to put in, and still that you win that day, and if you didn't, then tomorrow's another day.
I think there's also a compounding issue there, Jason, where, and I could be wrong on this, but I mean, I'm just putting myself in the originator's shoes. There's also this expectation, I feel, where we're holding ourselves up to 2020, 2021 too, right? So we had this, we had such rapid abundance to scarcity, like that.
Totally. And that's when analysts like, man, I'm not doing as well. I'm like, dude, nobody is, right? Even top producers that are still doing good about business, they're not doing what they did either, right? So I said, you compare yourself to 2018 and 2019, right? Yeah. Look at those numbers. And then when I tell that, they look, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm up like 15% compared to those numbers. Fantastic. And this market's worse than those markets were, right? And so like, just be happy with that and understand that you got to just keep going and keep grinding. But the biggest thing that I try to tell every loan officer is like, look, how many times have I been at an event talking, or a mastermind or whatever, talking about Instagram or doing video or lead follow-up? Like, none of that's new. None of that's groundbreaking or changing, right? But it's just like, people won't do it. So you understand, like, your greatest opportunity is the fact that 80% of your competition will do nothing from what I see right now. They'll do any of this stuff. So all you have to do is do 50% of what I'm talking about. Don't even do 100%. Just do 50, do 30%. It's
do any of it,
something. It's going to still be 100% more of the people that are doing nothing, right?
Yeah.
So like, that's their advantage, and it's just hard. But I also, again, this is why I talk about like kind of, rebelling against the status quo of the industry, is because they're around so many loan officers and branch managers talking about times of this and that and whatever, about this is how I do all that stuff. But again, it's never just one thing. They don't tell you that they're still trading off these relationships and things that mattered when those tactics worked, right? They didn't just get up today and started what they did 15 years ago. If they did, there's no way they're doing the same type of business. It just doesn't work that way. Consumerism changes, right? It's fluid, right? It's an organism, right? It changes season by season, and you just have to understand how to know your audience, what messages are going to resonate, what their challenge is, and then have the confidence that you are the one that's going to be able to solve those challenges. If you do that, you will come out ahead, right? It's almost impossible not to.
Yeah. I had a conversation with a client the other day, and they were expressing that they felt like results were suffering, and that they were like, I just feel like the quality's gone down. It seems like everything with the leads, the quality, the quantity, the just the times we're in has changed. And when we actually dove into numbers and stuff, there really wasn't any changes. From a data standpoint, it was identical. But what it was this perception of the ratio of lead to loan was affected, right? Because this is one of the things that I've realized after doing this for, going on 6-7 years now, is apps don't pay bills. You can't go to MasterCard and go, hey, I got 3 apps this month, right? Can you take an app? Right? It's like, no, we need the funded loan. And in most markets, apps equal loans, right? But it's interesting to see now, because it's like, you really do have to work hard. Like, I didn't realize the extent of it until probably about a month ago, maybe less. Because it's like, I'm used to I sell what I got, right? So it's like, the way I've always looked at it is it's always a great market, right? It's like in 2020, 2021, people were like, rates are low, there's no inventory, then you sell rate, my friend, right? It's like, okay, well now it's like, okay, rates are up, but inventory's a little up too, then you sell inventory, right? Like, you talk about what you got to talk about. Like, let's not focus on what we don't have, let's focus on what we do have. So the salesman in me has always been like kind of, I guess, disassociated from the realities of the market. And I understand that there's increased difficulties. I don't think I really understood how Like, it's like, I don't want to compare it to like '08 because obviously the '08, there's a ton of like governmental fraud and like that goes way deeper than just like, originators messed it up. It's like, this is different, right? We're regulated and still having these issues. And so so I started to kind of look in and go, okay, well, this is like, there's like an anti-fragility requirement right now. Like, you can't just show up normal. It's just not good enough right now. Yeah. And, I don't know. It's challenging to share that with people because they have to believe it for their own reasons, and I don't know. How do you navigate that? Like, because you coach a lot. I mean, I coach too, but I'd be curious about your perspective and take on that.
Yeah. So I wrote about this, not last issue, but in the our LFG newsletter before, because it's something I think is important to your point, is that when you look at when you take an inventory, recession, inflation, everything that's happening right now, right? But you also got to understand that we had 2 back-to-back boom years where we did double the amount of production. What happens in any sales cycle, but in a certain, let's say a given year, let's just keep it in the mortgage market because that's, what we're talking about, is that you do an X amount, like whether it's 1.6, 2.1 trillion, whatever it happens to be in a given market, right? You could only do so much business, right? You can only do so much business. And so there's a natural transition of people from quarter to quarter, year to year, on basically the amount of people that you can do business with, right? It's seasonality, everything else. That's how the market works. The problem is that when you do 2 back-to-back of double that, you've created what I call the consumer deficit of people that are going to be able to be in the money or in the market, right? They don't exist, right? So if you take, and this is where data matters, right? And when you take and look at the people of a normal home buying age, population of the United States, and you look like, okay, that leaves you roughly with around like 86 million people, right? Then you take that of the median house price in the country and look at what the average savings is based off of that age range. It's only 8% of that population that has at least 3.5% down for a down payment, right? Then on top of that, you take the percentage of people that in this market that are in, like I said, in the market, in the money, that have fair to poor credit, which loan officers hate to do, to work leads that are credit challenged, right? So you take that, you don't have a great amount of app to loan pull through quality in your leads. You just won't. It's impossible. It's mathematically impossible because we've had a deficit for the last 2 years of having a boom, right? So you have to set expectations. But here's the thing. Because of the normal mindset, that was okay to do that in 2020 and 2021. It's not okay. So when I mentioned the guy earlier, is like, he's like what he started to do 3, 6, 12 months ago with keeping in touch with people, filling the database with everyone, working low credit leads, getting them up to par. Now he's created a never-ending pipeline because he started 12 months ago, right? Now people are trying to start today and expecting the same type of results that they've had. So again, it goes back to mindset. It's just unrealistic expectations of people, because guess what? The people that are at 2.5%, 3% aren't moving, right? But here's the thing, right? And this is why I always say that your marketing starts before the consumer even knows who you are, is that you have to market to something that is almost impossible to market to, right? At least as consistently. And that's life events, because you can't tell when someone's going to change a job. You can't tell when someone's getting divorced. You can't tell when someone's getting married or whatever without getting into creepy data, of course. But those life events still happen. Even with all of the things that are going on, we're still going to probably do around 1.3, 1.4 trillion, right? Which means business is always going to be done for whatever reason, but you have to be there in order to capture that business. The people that I see are successful are the ones that started 12 months ago to be there, right? And now they're there, and now they're doing business, right? Mm-hmm. And you can't pull back. You can't just like, I'm waiting for rates to go back, but you also got to have a different message too, right? Because there are people that can't afford. But the problem is that we used so much of this rates in 2021, getting appreciation. Everyone's in let's make a deal mindset, right? So the story I said is that, look, what you should be saying is you want to buy now with higher rates. Why? Because you probably won't be able to afford that house you're looking at or want when rates are lower, because you're going to have bidding wars, cash offers, and it's going to be out of it. I had a friend that lost a house that he could have afforded when no one was bidding on it, when no one was looking at it in February, but then rates came down because of the bank failures and bonds rallied. So guess what? Rates are down. I went, couldn't afford it, right? Because it went 50,000 over what he could have bought it for in February, right? So that's the mindset people don't understand is like, it's what I call my PAL framework, right? It's the perceived value, actual value, and loss of value. As an originator, you say, hey, if I get you what you want, is that valuable to you? Yes. If I could get it to you at a price you could afford, is that valuable to you? Yes, right? If I could do the work so to make sure you don't lose what's valuable to you, is that valuable to you? Yes, you got 3 yeses. So if they say anything, wait a second, you just told me yes on this, yes on this, yes on this. Here it is, right? Is that value or is it let's make a deal, right? Are you going to be in this house for 20 minutes or are you going to be in for 5 years? If you're going to be in it for 5 years, then that's the end of the conversation. They just have, but they're not used to talking like that. So that's how I look at it.
It reminds me of a Donald Trump quote that I heard once. He said, I overpaid on all of my best deals, right? And the idea is that if you wait for the best time, if you wait for the lowest price, if you wait for, no. Do you want it, right? If you want it, there's never, and I mean, this is pretty universally true even outside the housing market. Name a time when waiting was a great investment strategy. Right? Doesn't exist. You were there or you weren't. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. And, obviously housing is no different in that. That's a great perspective on that, bro. So, okay. So let's talk about this real quick. So what do you feel? I mean, obviously loan officers across the board are encountering an increased friction compared to what they're used to, right? I think part of that is there's the confrontation as an individual that you have to go, shoot, okay. I mean, it's uncomfortable, it's unfamiliar, right? All of that is difficult to manage. It's difficult for me, it's difficult for you. We just wake up and do it, right?
Yeah.
But what is some of your advice for somebody that wants that, but they don't know what to start, what standards to set, what patterns to change, what to break and reset? I'm curious about some of your perspective around that.
Yeah, and it's tough because it's so different for everyone, right? Because and this is something that it's a great book that I read called The Motivation Myth. And so here's the thing: is that when a lot of people think about like they need something, they need a spark that motivates them, right? Motivation's real. Don't get me wrong. The problem is that that's not what creates the action. Action is what creates the motivation. Right. And so, it's something that I really took to heart. It's something that I guess I kind of believed in without really even thinking about it that way. But I look back of the successes that I've had or the challenges and it wasn't being motivated, inspired, maybe whatever, but it was the taking action, and that action led to me to take more action. And that's what the motivating factor became. And so, with a lot of people that I talk to that, cause it's between your ears, right? For most everyone. Mm-hmm. And so what it comes down is like, you got to figure out like your passion or your purpose, what you want to do. Cause I'm an introvert, right? Like I'm a very introverted guy. And yet, speaking at events and on stage and stuff like that is something that I wanted to do. So my passion for and purpose to win and to be the best and to do that outweighed my fears. And so what I think is that you just kind of have to reset the way that you think. And that takes a lot of different forms. Where from the person is you got to figure out like what you want to do has to outweigh what is holding you back or the stories that you're telling yourself, because the stories that you tell yourself is what you become. And so a lot of people, and sometimes you could say something, I could say something. Sometimes the message is the message. Sometimes it's the messenger, right?
100%.
Sometimes it's the messenger that gets through because they resonate or they see someone doing it. And then it is, and look, as a coach, I've seen, I'm like, man, I've been telling you that for the last 6 months and now you're doing it. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, well, I saw this and I'm like, either way, okay, we're not going to.
Yeah, you got it. Whatever.
You're doing it, right? So fantastic. But the point is sometimes it's just the messenger. And I think ultimately it comes down, it always comes down to the mindset, but I think it's, you have to be coachable. You just have to have a level of being coachable. I grew up playing sports, right? So, I'm probably one of the most coachable people you're ever going to meet because again, I was good, I was really good. I started, and I was a letterman, but it was my need to win And if that means one game I got 0 points, but I got a ton of assists and I played good D, but we won, that was the purpose. That was, so I don't need the accolades. I need to win. And so you just got to figure out what that win is, whatever it is in your life. And you just got to focus on that and keep focusing on that and keep focusing on it. And again, maybe you're hearing this message, maybe you've heard it before, maybe tomorrow, because it's in there somewhere. And then maybe tomorrow you watch a YouTube video and someone says exactly what we're just talking about now, and it hits. Fantastic. But you have to have that ability or I guess you call it maybe being open-minded. It's the best way I could think of it. But to me, it's, you have to find what's going to outweigh what's holding you back.
Yeah, I like that. You said something there that reminded me of a quote that I heard once, where it's people don't change until the pain to stay the same outweighs the pain to change.
Same thing. And it's like the pain just has to be there.
Yeah, it's interesting. One thing I wanted to orbit around with you is it's come up in my world. I mean, over the last few years, a decent amount of times, probably close to 50, where somebody looks at Good Vibe Squad, they look at what was Lead Pups, now Rebel IQ, and they go, some version of, well, why would I want both? As if it's, Toyota to, Honda. And it's like, okay, well, it's, I've actually found some of our more successful clients actually use both, right, in parallel. And so my question for you is, from your guys' perspective, you guys take care of websites. You guys are helping people kind of take control of their own lead generation through various means, through their brand, I know you guys have some funnel assets as well, which I think is awesome. And there's a group of people in the industry that would, I'm sure, thrive with those. What are your thoughts? And I feel like I know where you'll go with it, but I think it's good just to invite the conversation. What are your thoughts about people buying different forms of media or leveraging different means of attraction to prospects, borrowers?
And look, it again, this is more marketing 101, sales 101, right? How many at bats do you want? It comes down to that, right? And so look, and it's funny because I've had people that were interested in Good Vibes come to me and like, hey, Preston McBilly, gave me your name to talk about it, right? And I'm like, all right, cool, yeah, let me tell you what I know. And I said, look, I've never used a system, but I was at their mastermind and there was 100 people there, and I talked to them and they seemed to be freaking super excited and happy with the service and stuff. So you should definitely talk to them. But all I could vouch for is that they know what they're doing. All I could vouch for is that they're great marketers. Right. And so if you came to me because you trusted me, you see me online or whatever, and so take that for what it's worth. But you always talk to the person. But to me, and it's like, well, what about doing both? Is it overlap? I'm like, you're going to get a different service and you're going to get results from them. You're going to get results from us. Do you not want multiple channels of results?
Right.
And that's how I look at it, is that, even in our industry, you got MBS Highway, you got Mortgage Coach, you got people that will only do one or the other. You got people that do the same, or that do both, and they find value of that tool. So I always look at it this way, is that like, you are in the doing business, right? You are in the doing deals business. And so you want as many channels as possible and as many services that provide results, right? For that. And also knowing that you got, and I think we align a lot when it comes to solutions, is that you are not an instant ROI, short-term 30-day solution, right? We are not at Rebel IQ a instant ROI, instant gratification, short 30-day solution. We are a long-term partner. Good Vibe Squad is a long-term partner. So for those that want to create legacy business and want as many at-bats as possible, then it makes sense to do, whether it's, Rebel IQ and Good Vibes, or whether it's some other services, wherever you're going to get results. Why would you want to cut it off just because you think they overlap? And when, we really don't. Yes, there's certain aspects of what we do. And
yeah, I mean, it's a Venn diagram.
Right. Yeah. It overlaps, but who cares? Right. Like if you're getting results, and arguably, if I'm looking at the industry, and again, I kind of said this already, arguably, we're two of the best that are going, between our two organizations, are two of the best in the industry. So if you have two of the best, is that a bad thing? No, it's right. It's just, and I get it, right? I get it. Like, cause people are like, I don't want to spend so much money. I don't want to do this, or I think and they could be, right? It's always about fit too, right? Like, it's like, you may look at us and what we do and you're like, that's right in my wheelhouse. That's exactly what I want. Awesome. Right. They look at you guys or like, that's exactly what I want. It's right in my wheelhouse. Cool. And like, I looked at both of you guys and I thought this or that. Cool. Right. Like, again, I'm not in the convincing you business. I am the showing you what we do, showing you the proof of how we've done it. And we know what we're doing and we're going to continue to do it. Right. And if I didn't sell you on that, because I'm not trying to, but if that's not you, then cool. But we've had people that I've talked to have been here literally for months, and then finally they're clients now, right? And it's just like nothing's changed. I mean, yeah, obviously Rebel IQ and stuff, but like, our technology's still the same,
right?
Just now it just got to that point. So, but again, just a long-winded answer to say, in sales and marketing, you want as many at bats as possible, and who cares? Look at Rocket and their marketing. They don't just run Facebook ads,
for sure.
They're freaking, they are in competing services everywhere, right?
They're getting stadiums. They're putting their name on buildings.
Stadiums and everywhere else. And the reason why is because they want as many at-bats as possible, because they want to win. And because of the number one rule that you and I both know is whoever spends the most money to acquire the customer wins.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, no, I agree with that. You said something there that I thought was interesting. It kind of took me down a visual, which was we're not selling an instant gratification kind of solution. And the secret to that is there isn't one, right? Yeah, like this is the housing industry. It takes time. This is a slow moving sales cycle. It's kind of like the whole lose weight quick pill. It's like, if it was real and worked, it wouldn't be in gas stations. It would be in hospitals.
Yeah. People would be making billions of dollars off. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it's like, that's a marketing gimmick at best. If anybody's selling you instant gratification in this industry, especially, to me, that's a red flag, So, dude, that's awesome, man. This has been a really, really fun conversation, Jason. As we wrap up here, I'd like to know, from your perspective, what is a book or a resource that you've gone through, in recent years, or maybe even back if it was really paramount for you, that you felt was transformative and should be required reading for somebody in mortgage or sales?
Yeah, there's so many, right? But I've read a lot of great books, right? Obviously, I could say, maybe it's Dan Kennedy, maybe it's Russell Brunson books that are really good. The Motivation Myth I mentioned was actually a big book for me. That's definitely one of them. But it's got to be one of the recent ones that I've read, and that's Jeb Blount's Selling in a Crisis.
The crisis one.
If you were looking for one as a loan officer, if you want to look, because you're going to go through it and you're like, oh shit, that's exactly what Preston Frazier just talked about for like the last hour, right? Like if you look at that book as a loan officer and you don't find value in that, then you're in the wrong business. That book is a guide on how to win in a market like this. And so and honestly, like, guess what? If you win in a market like this, you're going to win in the good markets too, right? So like, to me, is like, if I'm recommending any book for a loan officer right now, it's Selling in a Crisis. It's your absolute blueprint and guidebook to being successful in a market.
We just talked about this actually in our newsletter where, I was talking about what works during peacetime does not work in a recession, but what works in a recession thrives in peacetime, right?
Yes.
And so it's like, if you just wake up and live like every day is recession time, you will evolve substantially as an entrepreneur, because when it finally comes, you'll go, I knew it. Let's go. Business as usual, right? Whereas everybody's panicking, you were prepared, right? Yep. Kind of goes back to that Warren Buffett. You see who all's naked when the tide goes out.
When the tide goes out, yeah.
So, well, Jason, dude, this has been awesome. We'll have to do this again. I feel like I could have these with you weekly, probably. What I would like to do is just kind of create a spot here. If people want to learn more about you and what was Lead Pops, now Rebel IQ, where should they go? How should they reach you? What's your preferred methods there? I'll make sure I put it in the description.
Yeah, look, I'm not hard to find on social, so Instagram, Facebook, the LinkedIn, The Real CMO. That's my tag. And then my Rebel IQ on social. That's the best way to kind of see our content. There's links everywhere to connect with us. But yeah, that's social is the easiest way for anyone to connect. And like I said, I'm not hard to find.
Awesome. Well, if you've made it this far and you've watched this episode in completion, you've listened to it on your favorite podcast app, Jason is one of my favorite marketers in the space. He knows what he's doing. He's somebody that he's always going to tell you what you want to hear, which is something I also appreciate because I'm the same way. But he's going to tell you what you need to hear and what's relevant to you right now in whatever market you're in. If you're listening to this in 2023, 2024, obviously we'll go through some shifts between now and then. Regardless what he's going to say, I would definitely follow him because it's going to be relevant and timely at any point in that journey. So, Jason, thank you again for hopping on the Lendsetter Show with us. It's a pleasure as always to get to hang out.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me. Fun convo.
Yeah, man. It's been fun. Talk soon.